Stay with this story. That's the story of the electricity tariff increases. There's been victory for AfriForum after the High Court granted it the order to prevent increases in some municipalities that have not done the cost of supply studies. The lobby group accusing Nersa of approving hikes despite procedures not being followed. Let's speak about this now with AfriForum's head of local government, Morne Mostert. Morne, good evening to you and thank you for your time. Let's start with how many municipalities are affected, specifically those that will not be able to implement the tariff increases from midnight tonight.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you very much. I think to start off, I'll rather turn the question around to say that at least with us granting the order, in terms of a representation made by Salga, they made a representation that there was 66 municipalities that actually handed in cost of supply studies, while we understand that there are 142 municipal licensees. So a vast majority of municipalities won't be able to get a tariff increase. And this was based on a judgment that was handed down in October 2022, where the court already found that municipalities were asking exorbitant amounts of money or tariffs for the sale of electricity. And in that order specifically telling Nersa to not use their previous method, but to use the cost of supply method, which is a method where a municipality must gather all of the required information, and it takes about time, and you must understand that you must have your asset base and all of that information together to be able to complete the study, where you can actually use the actual costs of municipalities to be able to acquire a tariff increase. But not only that, but to actually understand what municipal licensees are paying for. So we did get this order. It is a very large and great victory for transparency in the electricity industry. And we require now from Nersa to actually go and take back and actually comply with their legislative obligations to require these studies from municipalities to ensure that we have a healthy electricity sector, and to ensure that municipal licensees actually know what they are paying for.
Yeah, we'll talk about Nersa in a moment, specifically this methodology that has now been thrown out by the court. If you were to explain the cost of supply studies in layman's terms for the viewer, how would you describe it? What is it exactly that these municipalities ought to have done?
Well, it's a very complex document, but to put it in the most basic form, it's basically if you had to draw up a business plan of what is required to deliver electricity, and all of the information that is required is the infrastructure, the maintenance schedules, the employees that works with the municipalities, those type of business information you require. But because the electricity industry is reasonably complex, you need to have a measurement of basically what are your losses, what are the amounts of losses that you have through your energy network. And all of those information, you basically film that into this, let's call it legislatively required document. And then because of all of this information you gather, it gives you a margin of what the costs ought to be for the sale of electricity. One must remember that these municipalities actually make a profit, or in quotation marks profit, from selling electricity. And Section 15 of the Electricity Regulations Act is very specific that only an efficient licensee may be able to profit from selling electricity. Now, the big question is, which the court already to a certain extent answered, was it is not an efficient licensee if the required documentation is not in place. And I need to applaud Salga from this stage. I think they're doing hard work to assist municipalities to get these studies done. But sadly, most of them fell short. And this is why it's important for us that our application is forward-looking to see that we can get this whole industry healthier. And it's a manner of Nersa. It's the whole focus of Nersa is to actually protect the consumer, which they aren't doing by not allowing these types of studies to not have the required information to actually understand what you are paying for.
Well, it is exactly the point I want to come to next. The role of Nersa, as you put it, it is to protect the consumer. Do you believe that they, in essence here, were bending over backwards to accommodate these non-compliant municipalities? And if your answer is yes, why would they want to do that? Because they're compromising themselves in the process.
Yes, they are exceedingly bending backwards, and we see that actually with the Eskom electricity tariffs as well. Nersa has repeatedly in few documentation stated that they haven't been effective in curbing the price increase hikes, not only from Eskom but from municipalities as well. So it's not a question. It's simply stated as fact or on their own version. What I do think is that they did try to. If you look at the way the story is told, in October they released a letter, or November they released a letter to make sure that municipalities would comply with this. So we applauded that when we received that letter because it was on the right track. It's after that where the whole story fell short, when they started to go back to the previous method to actually try and assist municipalities, but doing so they neglected their own legislative obligations. And so I don't understand why Nersa would give municipalities a free pass, especially when there was already a court order obliging them to use the cost of supply method. And we are happy to see that municipalities will now take this process, obviously, more importantly, or they more importantly engage with that. And AfriForum already said that we will try and assist municipalities there where we have branches to help them comply with this tool. I do also think it's important that the information that ought to be given by municipalities must be verified. It doesn't help if an electricity licensee starts guessing on what the amount of infrastructure they have. It has a very large impact not only on the cost of supply, but on what the amount being spent ought to be spent on infrastructure and maintaining that infrastructure is. So it's very important that these information need to be audited, there needs to be an assurance, and it needs to be tested with public participation processes, which AfriForum and various other stakeholders will be happy to take part, especially in municipalities where it's the mechanism on ground roots and it's delivering services to the consumer, which is the most important part of this whole situation.
Morne, Mostert, thank you.